I remember.
I don't know.
I remember when they were at grief therapy. The mother was at grief therapy the first time, and she was talking about how the mother was like, they kind of weren't like, she stayed away from the mother for a long time, and then like she kind of needed to move in with them.
Right.
So maybe it was between.
And that's when things got. She even said it, right. That's when things got weird with.
Yeah. So maybe Peter was born and he was fine, and then like the mother moved in after Charlie. I mean, after Peter. And then when Charlie was born, she's like, "Oh, I need to take advantage of this to get payment."
Right. Also, really interesting side note. I don't know if you guys picked this up, but the telephone pole in which Charlie gets beheaded, the symbol is also on that telephone pole, which then leads me to believe that every single plot event in the movie was planned out by the grandma. She knew what was going down, and it was all synchronic. It was supposed to happen that way.
It had to have.
Right?
If that symbol's there, too.
It was there. It's right above like her blood stain on it. It's pretty crazy.
This is the perfect time to talk about the dollhouse. Like, okay. What was that? Because you were saying that, must have all been planned out.
Right.
Why were they, like, making it? Why was it a dollhouse that was going through every single stage of life? Like, it's just for an art gallery, but, like, that doesn't make...
So...
Art reflects life.
If I could... Yeah. Well, if I could touch on it, too. So, the mom, Annie, makes the dollhouses. It's not the grandma. Totally separate from the grandma. But... I think it's the movie's way of alluding to the fact that everything is like planned out in like a puppet master sort of way. Because where you have like the symbols above like every bad event that goes down, I think the dollhouse is kind of like showing that the people living in the house, so Annie, Peter, Steve, Charlie, they're all just dolls in the grandma's like big old scheme of releasing payment, in some sort of way. So I think that's why they have the dollhouse. I think that's what the symbolism of the dollhouse might be.
I like that a lot.
Also, like, I agree with that completely. Also, they have no control. It's destiny. What's going to happen?
Right.
So, what do you call it?
They're fulfilling the prophecy.
Yep.
And also with the dollhouse stuff, one thing I was thinking was like, the movie with the music and like how the director like sets the tone. It's very anxious a lot. And there was one part where it's like, it might have. I don't even know what it was, but it was something to do with the kids before Charlie dies, and it was like very like tense, and then it cuts right to Annie working on the dollhouse, and she has like the magnifying thing, and she's like using the tweezers to place them very precisely, and I was just like thinking like that's so precise, like doing that you're probably like a very like anxious person, and it was like making me anxious.
Right.
Her just like slowly trying to place it perfectly.
Also, I don't know if I saw this correctly, but at the first dollhouse scene when the mom's working on it, isn't she in the background a little bit? Like, I know she's dead, but isn't there like ghost shadow figure there?
Oh, one of the dollhouses, she puts the grandma like in the doorway.
Right, and then I think if you look behind her, the grandma's actually there too. Like ghost grandma's there.
I don't know if
it was there. I think it might have been like a weird shot where they switched from Annie looking at the doll, like putting it from the perspective of the grandma doll looking out at Annie. I remember that.
Okay.
I had to go back to relook at it. I was like, what is that?
You said this was an A24 production, yes. Right? Honestly, I have to say I love A24's like films. The way they produce all their movies, the way they run them through, like
their cinematography is
amazing. It's like and like the sound, the soundtracks they use for them. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of that company for sure.
Like the 4:3 format in mid-90s.
Yeah. Also another gas movie.
Yeah, we should do that later on.
For sure.
About the dollhouse.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, like, how she's building the dollhouse, and like she's working on it again, and she just like snaps and she starts destroying all the dollhouses. So maybe that's a hint to the fact that maybe she is working with like the grandmother. Or like with the whole...
I know you've been thinking this.
Yeah. And you guys mentioned this before, but...
I think maybe.
No, go into it.
Yeah,
for sure.
But
I want to hear this. I'm interested now.
Yeah. So anyway, I think you guys were talking about this, but how the grandmother was actually the mother was working with payment, and like it was a self fulfilling prophecy, and like she knew that was going to happen, but she didn't want to destroy her family. So as it was going on, she just snapped, like, I don't want to lose my family, but, like, this has to happen. So maybe that's why she's so angry.
So
like,
you're thinking that the mom is also aware of what's about to go down the whole movie, too?
I'm just thinking that because the dollhouse. Because the dollhouse was, like, really weird. I don't know.
Right.
I think she knew what her mom was actually into.
And you know what is funny about that, too, that I can agree with that, is because, like, honestly, the mom, like, Annie is, like, PTSD-ified by the grandma for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like she's got some trauma.
Or, you know, maybe she wasn't a part of it, but she knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. No,
I prevent it. Yeah.
What you said, I definitely think, like, I agree with that. While I was watching, there's a certain point where it feels like she knows what has to happen.
Yeah. But just saw the note early on about the sacrifice.
Yeah. Like she knows, and she's just like, fuck it, I gotta.
And honestly, so if we can fast forward now back to that conjuring of Charlie in the house with Peter and Steve, and how we mentioned that Charlie, like, never left, and Charlie might have been stuck in Annie. I don't know if we want to get to this point just yet, but when she's reading the notebook and she's deciding that she needs to burn the notebook, first time she tries to throw it in. So I think up to that point with the notebook and whether she's trying to burn the notebook, I think there's an internal conflict within Annie of Charlie and Annie battling for the body. And so I think Charlie and Annie are battling over Annie's body and who's gonna, like, host it, who's living in it, you know? And I think Annie tries to toss the book away, try to end this whole, like, end it all. Burns herself, and then is like, Steve, like, I need you to do it. I need you to, like, burn. I can't. It's gonna burn me. And then we see Steve ends up going up in flames and dies.
She knew that he was gonna die, right?
I think so. I also think that when that happens, I think that's, like, I think by him dying and the book burning, I think that also cues, like, the end of Annie. I think from that point on, it's just Charlie.
What I thought there's sort of she was reading through the grandmother's, like, books in her library, and there was something about the a boy, and I'm thinking that maybe she was she didn't want to sacrifice her husband, obviously, but she was kind of choosing her son over her husband to survive.
Yeah,
right.
And he was a better host, anyways.
Yeah, and then, like, I think she knowingly killed him through, like, the whole, like, payment magic, but she didn't want to do it, but she had to.
Honestly, I agree with you, because when she throws the book, or when they, like, toss a book in, she has, like, this absurd look of, like, horror and terror on her face. Like, what did I just do? You know?
But was that the scene we were just watching, where she has that look, and then she, like, switches?
Yeah, and then she just when she switches, that's why I think Charlie's in. I think Charlie's in from that point.
That's Charlie,
and I think that's also why when Peter comes downstairs, this is after he's So actually, let's backtrack a little bit, because this is where I get a little confused too, or, like, where I don't know if I can get fully down with that, because so Peter at school, we then see too that Joanne has been, like, lurking outside his school. And then there's one scene outside in Peter's school where she sees him from a distance, and he's like, Peter, like, I expel you from this house. Like, you know, remember when she says that? She's, like, looking at him across thing, and then she claps, and, like, some weird stuff happens in the movie.
Yeah.
When that happens, I'm like, okay, Charlie's, like, in Peter now. But to, like, what we were just talking about, I don't think that she is, because I think she's totally an Annie when she burns the book, and when her facial expression switches, I think that's it. I'm going to contradict myself.
Okay, let's see it.
Because I don't know, I just went full circle in my head. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know, it's kind of cool, but I think that it wasn't Charlie fighting for Annie's body. What if it was the grandma the whole time trying to get back in, and the grandma was fighting for Annie's body? Because we already know that Charlie needs Peter's body. Why would she go into the mom's body?
I don't know.
Oh, and also Queen Lee in the treehouse. So
yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
And from that point on, she's progressing the whole rest of the movie to get to where Payman can be reborn, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
So,
and then the grandmother cuts off her own new head.
Yeah, but I mean, she's not needed anymore at that point. Because also, so if we go to that point, is it okay if we go to that point?
Yeah, just go through it, yeah.
But do you remember the part earlier on when Charlie walks outside to, like, she's alone, she's walking barefoot, and she sees her grandmother standing off in the woods surrounded by fire?
Yeah. I do remember that.
So, like, that's... I don't know. Maybe the grandmother could have possessed Annie afterwards, but I don't know if it was the grandmother possessing.
Okay.
But I mean, who are we?
Right,
Who are we
right.
to say?
I mean, hey, that's the magical thing about movies. You
Yeah.
can go either way, right? But so
100%.
interesting to note too. So we can backtrack too after this, but I just want to get this out there because I think it's really cool. And while we were watching the end with you, Steve, I just kind of realized this. But so when Annie's up on the attic, the top of the attic, like cutting her head off,
Yeah.
and she forces basically Peter's like, this is it. I'm jumping out the window. And Peter yeets himself out the window.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Peter dies when he jumps out the window.
For sure.
Because if you
Yeah.
notice, there's a orb that floats onto him.
The same orb that earlier on in the movie, Charlie's in her room and it
Yep.
goes across her room.
And so I'm pretty sure the orb is Payman. And I think the orb was in Charlie.
You think it left Charlie? then?
Left Charlie when Charlie died because it needed to get released, right? Because it couldn't be in that host. And then Charlie in some way gets into Peter or something, I don't know. Or Peter at that point is just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My family's like, my dad's dead. My mom's cutting her head off.
I think when he fell out of the window, I think he was definitely dead. He was possessed when he walked to the treehouse, for sure.
Oh, no, he was. Because you see the orb go into his body.
Yeah, and also...
And the click happens right when he gets
Yeah.
back up. It's like, and then he's up.
Also-
Don't be scared. So.
He
Yeah.
went to the treehouse and he said, Charlie, we have a new healthy male body for you. Also,
Right, the first
you
one
are
was
Payman, one of the 8 kings of hell.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, I don't know. I mean, that, like, low-key, like, was pretty, like, well done, I think. Because I totally missed that the first time, like, watching it. And honestly, when I finished it the first time, I was really confused how Charlie got into Peter. And I was really confused how that whole transition went. But now watching it again, seeing the orb, that makes sense. What I really do have an issue with, or not an issue with, I don't really understand how this happened or what happened, was that scene when Peter's in school and his hand is like held up to the sky and it's like kind of bent forward and he's like low-key like seizing out a little bit and starts smashing his head into it. That was after Joanne was like, I expel you from this host, right?
Yeah.
Does that symbolize Peter like leaving, or does that symbolize like I don't know, like what do you mean, like what is that? I don't
thought
get like
maybe
what that
like the
is.
spirit was like trying to actually pick him up and just physically destroy him. Like, you know, like the
Like
you know in the
Payman's spirit
first-
or Charlie's?
Huh?
Payman or Charlie?
They're the same people, aren't they?
No.
Charlie is Payman. Payman is Charlie.
I don't.
Well, Charlie's like the girl, but Payman's
the
like a
host,
demon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she was the host for Payman, wasn't she?
I think Payman.
I guess, yeah, you're right.
Payman
Yeah.
was Charlie for so
Allegedly.
long that he started to think he was Charlie. Kind of like Johnny Depp kind of thinks he's like Jack Sparrow. A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure. But okay, wait. So then, if that's the
Exactly.
case, how do you explain the scene where Peter's in his bedroom? I think it's after he breaks his nose, but then Charlie's there and like she's like in the like wardrobe. Do you remember? And he knocks over the wardrobe and shatters it.
What was this?
Does that happen? Remember, he's in his bedroom. I'm pretty sure, and like Charlie's in the corner or something. Like Charlie's like in the room with him, and like something goes down. I don't know, but like she's like there like messing with him, and like
Oh,
it's just like lie like on. I don't know. I forget what it is.
that when the head falls off?
I think
in a
so.
room?
Yeah.
It was an illusion. I think he was dreaming, but it was probably some truth to it. Like it was
Okay.
like a dream. It was an illusion, but like I think like it was meant. Like, that was actually did happen on the
Right.
movie.
So I'm
That was
wondering
spooky.
too if this is all like conjurings that Joanne's putting into all their heads, maybe as an outsider, like trying to progress.
I think as soon as Annie had the conjuring, I think they were just trying to kill Peter the entire time.
Yeah.
Because that's and like the whole thing was like at like the school where he was picked up. They were
Doesn't
trying to-
Peter become aware of it though?
He must have been some kind of aware of it. He was scared. Yeah, he must have been aware. I don't think he was for certain knew what was going to happen. Want to get into the ending of the movie a little bit?
Yeah.
So, so he wakes up from being knocked out from school. I think that he just wakes up,
Yeah, he's in his bedroom.
and this is after we talked about how the mother burned Father Steve, and so he walks down there. He's like, "Mom, Dad," and then he walks downstairs, finds finds his father burned to a crisp, like
Right.
and then he turns around and sees a naked dude. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I honestly, even after watching
naked
it,
dead dude.
even after watching it the second time through, and maybe y'all know more
Yeah.
information about this, but and